Just always had some dream in the back of my mind to live in Japan, eat sushi 3 times a week, and just take in the Japanese culture. Everyone talks about this unbelievable work ethic and culture around Japanese business. I think I didn't quite grasp what I had signed up for when I first did it. Time to get butt naked with the entire company.
Welcome to Unpacking Japan. I'm Toby, and today we welcome Beau on the set.
Hello, guys.
Thank you for coming. You are the founder of Reiwa Pharmaceuticals, a pharmaceutical company producing, and you corrected me when I wrote to you, functional beverage. Not a soft drink, and we will talk more about what it is and what you're doing. But like everyone that comes on the show, I want to ask you, how did you come to Japan? What brought you here?
Well, the first thing I want to say is I'm just so excited to be back in Osaka because my first stint in Japan was working for a traditional machinery company in South Osaka. The station was actually Showa-cho, so just one station south of Tennoji, and I lived there for 3 years, lived in the company housing, was in this very traditional office almost every day working for this really cool traditional company. And since I quit that job to start Reiwa Pharmaceuticals about 4 years ago, I haven't had the chance to come back to Osaka. So
in the last 4 years, you haven't been back to Osaka?
Well, and I've been bootstrapping my startup in Tokyo on a very tight budget, really dedicated to that. So this is my first time back since I lived here full time. And just since I arrived last night, the memories have been flooding back in, and just walking downtown. Actually, the first 6 months of that time in Osaka, the company supported me to do a Japanese language school every morning for about 6 months, and it was in Shinsaibashi. So I was just walking around there, and just everything's walking around Namba. So, and I feel just very nostalgic coming back here. A lot of great feelings after being in Tokyo for a couple years. You
got me curious. How did you get to that traditional company in the first place and kind of end up living in the company housing and everything?
Well, so let me answer your first question. is basically that I always had some interest in Japanese culture and Japanese lifestyle since I was quite young, and that was actually through my favorite food, which is sushi. And it's kind of weird to say, but even since I was 5 years old, I just loved sushi. Even growing up abroad, every year for my birthday, my mom would say like, "Oh, what do you want for what do you want for birthday dinner this year?" I say, "Okay, I want to take all my friends to sushi, downtown Brussels or wherever we were." Just loved it, and just always had some dream in the back of my mind to live in Japan, eat sushi 3 times a week, and just take in the Japanese culture. And then that small dream I had during university in Chicago, I got an opportunity to go to Tokyo on a business trip with the company I was working with, and had a great experience to start off with. Really connected with the culture, but then had an opportunity to go to the sushi market in Tsukiji during that trip, and just thought, "Oh my God, this is my calling."
The dream came true.
The dream came, and that sushi blew me away so much more than anything I'd even had before. I opened up my eyes to that and thought, "Oh, it's not going to be tomorrow, but sometime in the future, Japan's going to be part of my life. I know I'm going to live here." And so the sushi was kind of my first avenue in, but I also, the more times I came to Japan, the more I found myself connecting with the culture. One way is that I think one of my few good qualities of my personality is that I'm a very patient person. And I just found that being patient and allowed me to take advantage of Japanese culture in a lot of ways that non-Japanese people usually can't. Being able to wait patiently along with all the bureaucracy, wait patiently with everyone, and I don't know. Just the more I came, the more it intrigued me, and I enjoyed the culture shock. I enjoyed the business culture, and so it just kept accumulating and accumulating. And then finally, after university, I first did my business school in Shanghai. And then right after that, I actually joined a Japanese language school in Shanghai. And it was all taught in Chinese. It was a really cool experience.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was really cool. It was actually a great way to kind of take my Chinese was quite good at the time, but then when you start studying another language in Chinese, it just gets it to another level. And it was a really cool experience. I was only at that school for like 2 weeks because I went there after 2 weeks of classes. The receptionist called me and said, "Oh, hello, Beau. We got an interview request from a Japanese company here looking for people trying to learn Japanese, and they said they want an engineer and someone who speaks English." We thought, wow, we got to connect you. I said, okay, fine. I went for an interview at the factory outside of, just on the outskirts of Shanghai. I was talking to the very traditional Bucho at the time, the director of that factory, Mr. Ando. Who's really an amazing Japanese businessman. But we actually did the first interview in all Chinese, and he was just saying, we're really impressed with your background. You seem like a perfect fit. Actually, we want someone who speaks Japanese, but you're trying to learn, and we want to make it happen. But and then he said, if you really want to learn Japanese, I don't think it's going to happen here in Shanghai. So how about you join our company? We're going to send you to the headquarters in Osaka for 2-3 years. You're going to learn about business culture, learn about Japan, and then come back and work for me in Shanghai. And I think I didn't quite grasp what I had signed up for when I first did it. I didn't understand exactly like how traditional a family-run Japanese business could be. And so right when I signed the papers, and before I even started, they invited me to join the annual company outing, the Shine Ryoko, where they took, I think, 2 buses from the office or from the factory near Tennoji to an onsen in Hyogo. And I mean, I spoke very little Japanese at the time. Just a couple of us went of the people I had just met in Shanghai. And suddenly we're at this onsen retreat in the middle of nowhere, Hyogo. And basically they're like, all right, time to get butt naked with the entire company and jump in the onsens. And then so we're all just there, and the Shacho, the owner of the company, I mean, just butt naked, comes up and says, "Oh, great to have you in my company. We're really excited." And it's like, oh my God, like what have I got myself into? And there's even a picture of me, front and center with that whole group of like 200 people from the company. And that was kind of how it all started. And I thought, wow, this is going to be an interesting experience.
You said earlier that when you talked about this company, you described this traditional company as cool. So how was it like when you you had this fear maybe at the beginning of what have I signed up for, and you go on this company trip and you end up staying at the company housing?
Sure.
What turned out to be like the cool part where you're like, well, it's traditional, it's old school, but there's something that's...
I think it's not, that experience wouldn't be for most people, right? I think if you didn't have an already like burning desire to learn about business in Japan, I'm not sure it would be for you. But I had always had this desire to learn about business in Japan, and I wasn't looking for any shortcuts. Like, I really wanted to just live the daily life that Japanese people were living, live in a company housing, make some Japanese friends, go drinking with my coworkers, hear what they were thinking, and just exist in this Japanese business environment that we had studied it in university. Everyone talks about this unbelievable work ethic and culture around Japanese business, and I was just so intrigued. And suddenly I had this opportunity to be in a super traditional company, which had its ups and downs, its good points and bad points. But suddenly I was in it, and I was 100% invested, right? And no matter what culture shock happened, no matter what problems there were, it was so exciting to have that experience and really dig deep. And yeah, I mean, just some examples I remember would be, so I was part of the business team. My actual role was overseas business, and every month we would have the business meeting of the company, and it was so traditional. The two owners who were cousins would sit at one end of the table, and then all the business managers would just sit around the other side. Like it was in the cafeteria it was bizarre because they would do it on like Wednesday nights after work, so everyone had to stay late. All right, and I would just sit there listening to everybody give these very boring reports. But it was so interesting to see how they were managing the company and how it was different from anything that I had been exposed to before. And I think the really cool part is that they didn't treat me like an outsider, right? Even though I was basically the only non-Asian in the entire company. There were a few Chinese and Vietnamese people, but I wasn't an outsider there, right? I was part of the business team. They expected me to contribute just like anyone in the company. They expected me to write all my reports in Japanese, and they knew it was going to be just terrible at the beginning, but they were willing to let me do my best, and they really accepted me into the business culture. And we had big Japanese corporations that were our main customers, and they would take me to those meetings in Japan and abroad. And then slowly but surely, I would be the one leading those meetings with Japanese customers. And it was just such a unique experience that you couldn't. It's so difficult for anyone to get such an experience.
When you met Ando-san, Mr. Ando, in the factory in Shanghai, he was like, well, we need you to speak Japanese. So you're going to go to Osaka, you're going to practice your Japanese for 2-3 years, and then you're going to come back to this factory.
That was the idea, yeah.
That was the idea. How did that turn out?
It happened, yeah. And so I actually became a kacho of the Shanghai factory. So I was in Osaka in about 2.5 years total. And there were lots of interesting experiences in the Honsha. Where to start, right? A lot of weird bureaucracy, but lots of good. I remember, just to share a couple more stories. You were talking about the company housing, right? So it was just 30 seconds walk from the main factory where we were every week, and I lived there with one Chinese roommate, one wonderful guy, and there were a couple Japanese people and a bunch of Vietnamese people in the company housing. That was an amazing experience. So just living 30 seconds from the factory. And every month we would have like a takoyaki party with all of those young co-workers, and a lot of them were, most of the Japanese ones were from Osaka or Hyogo, and so I just got this amazing exposure to the local Osaka culture. They taught me how to make takoyaki and okonomiyaki and these types of things. And then every morning, we'd wake up, get to the factory, and the first thing we'd do was the morning roll call. It was very traditional. The factory bell would ring. That factory, they have a couple factories, but that one had about 150 people, and everyone would be lined up right at 8:25, and Shacho would step up on the podium in front of the company, and the oldest man at the factory, who I believe was 88 at the time, he had worked there 70 years since he was 18, Mr. Nakata, a really interesting character. He would say attention, and then everyone would stand straighten up. And then I remember the first day I put my hands in my pockets, and after he came and slapped me on the hands, he was like, "No, put your hands in your pockets." It's like, oh my gosh, they take it pretty seriously. But then they would do the roll call, everyone's name one by one, and they would say, "Hi, Becca-san, hi," every morning for like 4 years. This is the company culture, and then we would all say the company motto. And it was the company motto, which never changed. And then every year they would come up with a new company slogan for that year. And every morning we would say those two. And then each day it would rotate between the people in the factory, and one person would go up and say that every morning. And so I remember being quite nervous when it was my turn. But
Speak in front of everyone and just like make sure you don't mess it up.
Yeah, exactly. I remember the night before, like practicing in the mirror, like, okay, we can't mess this up tomorrow. Like, everyone's gonna be watching. But no, I think I did it. I did it maybe 5 or 6 times in my time there, and then when I went back to the factory in Shanghai, I had to do it in Chinese in front of everybody. Same culture, but. But your question was, how did I end up back in Shanghai? And then
basically you have this experience for quite a few years in Japan, in China, this company that kind of gave you this opportunity to come to Japan, learn Japanese. And then at some point you decide, or you start having this idea of, I want to start my own company.
Yeah, well, so that's not quite right. And because actually, since I was 20 years old in university, I had always wanted to start my own company. I was very entrepreneurial, always had this burning desire. And even my mom tells me now that when I was in elementary school, every morning I would have a new business idea in my head, something crazy. I'd say, Mom, we got to do this. Like, here's a new idea. Never, nothing ever really stuck. And even when I was 20, I was always coming up with new ideas, but it was always kind of outlandish, nothing that was really concrete, but somehow I was always looking for that good idea. And I think that was what really pulled me towards China when I was 20, 22, 23. There was so much business opportunity there. I saw such an unbelievable entrepreneurial spirit, budding in Shanghai and throughout China, that I just felt, okay, if I just go there and work, study, do it, just get in there, I'll have to find a great idea and make a business. Which the more I found out about business in China, the more I realized actually it's not that great of an option to start a company there. But yeah, I had always wanted to start a company. And then while I was working for this, for the manufacturing company in Osaka, was where I finally had that epiphany moment where I must have been close to here actually. It was at my volleyball team was having a drinking party somewhere in Shinsaibashi. I remember very clearly 3 of my volleyball teammates were just standing at the bar, all drinking a beer, totally red in the face, and I saw them tried to make a joke saying, why aren't you guys using, some kind of medicine to stop turning red? They just said, oh my God, I've never heard of that. That doesn't exist. Oh, I wish that existed. And I thought, actually, how can it doesn't exist? Actually, in the US, it's quite a common product. Asian Americans are very commonly using these anti-redness medicines and supplements and such. I thought, I know all about this. How could you guys, are you serious? You don't, so many Japanese people have this alcohol flush, but but people are saying there's no solution. And so my mind just exploded while I was at that party. I almost had to leave the party and just go home and start working. And then after that moment where it just popped into my head, I spent basically the next probably almost 2 years while I was still employed, between Osaka and Shanghai, just spending all my free time researching, visiting factories. Every time I got a break from work, I remember we had a Chinese New Year holiday at the Shanghai factory, and I actually took the holiday and flew to Japan just to meet functional beverage factories and say, okay, can you actually make this? How much would this cost? And then ended that trip by going to the trademark office in Tokyo just to get the trademark of the brand I had come up with. So
you had a lot of dedication for it. And
yeah,
I'm quite curious about 2 things. But first, because we're going to talk about this a lot more, what is a functional beverage?
What is a functional beverage?
How do you define this in terms of like product market category?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think anyone who's been to a drugstore or convenience store in Japan would have a quite clear image of this, because they always have this refrigerator, an open refrigerator with maybe 100 or 150 small, usually between 50 milliliter and 100 milliliter small drinks that are called functional beverages that basically are not being consumed for refreshment or enjoyment, right? The purpose of these beverages is very specifically to provide your body with some alternative or excess health benefit, right? So I would say this is what defines a functional beverage.
So
right?
it could be, for example, adding vitamins or...
Vitamins. Yeah, well, just to name a couple then. So we've got, that are common in Japan would be liver supplements that are meant to boost your liver function. You've got skin supplements that contain collagen or amino acids. Anti-hangover drinks that are meant to help you process alcohol in some way. You've got these, even some products that are between energy drinks and functional beverages that contain taurine and amino acids that just kind of give your body some kind of boost, right?
So they're not consumed for enjoyment, but they also don't fall in the category of medicine.
I think this is, no, a lot of them do fall in the category of medicine, actually. And within that refrigerator in the drugstore, it's usually about half the products that are classified as medicine and half that are, legally speaking, medicines and half that are supplements. But the average consumer doesn't really see it that way. I think they're just products that would give you some kind of extra function. And I think maybe the key point is that they're not really for enjoyment, right? You're never going to see someone taking that and on a hot summer day and cracking it and
you take it because you want to get something out of it.
You're very clearly getting something out of it. And something interesting that I've learned as I've gone deeper and deeper into this industry is that especially Japanese consumers would often see a tablet product, even if it's not a medicine, it's just a supplement, they would often see that as something medical or something that they might feel uncomfortable to take. But for some reason, if it's in a drink form, it doesn't really fall in the medicine category.
Interesting.
It's just some kind of little boost that can help their body out. And a lot of the customers we've interacted with say, oh, it's just a drink. That makes me feel much safer. All right, well, actually, there's even much more active ingredients in the drink than the tablets, but it's great you feel that way.
So the first 2 years you spend researching a little bit this market, and you also meet factories. How did you find factories and kind of get in touch with them to ask about, I have this drink in mind, can you make this?
Sure, no, and I was really lucky because my career with the Japanese manufacturing company had been manufacturing, business, dealing with factories, dealing with manufacturing companies. So I had a lot of exposure to that. So it was something that felt very natural to me. But basically the way you do it, if for whatever industry you're looking for, is find exhibitions, right? You basically you go to the websites of whatever exhibition halls there are in Japan. And the main ones being in Tokyo, you have Makuhari Messe and Big Sight. And then there's one big one in Osaka. I kind of forget the name off the top of my head. But whatever it is, there's basically these three main locations. You go there and you look for the exhibition of the industry that you're intending to make something for. And just sign up and show up on the day with business cards, with a nice suit on. And then look at the samples that those factories have set up, and you're going to find somebody that's able to make what you're looking for or something close. And so we were looking at these supplements, and even when we first started, I didn't know, was it going to be a supplement or a medicine or both or whatever. So I went to pharmaceutical exhibitions and just passed my card out to as many factories as I could, got their numbers. I went to the health foods exhibitions, found as many factories as I could. And so I just built this little database of maybe 20 potential factories, and then started emailing them, calling them, saying, okay, this is kind of what we're thinking. Here's the potential ingredients. What do you think? maybe half of them said, oh, actually, we can't really do that. That's not going to work. And then half said, okay, yeah, come on over. And then I just went factory by factory, a lot of them in the countryside. And you're usually looking for one in the countryside because the prices are going to be cheaper. They'll usually, I think that's, if it's in the city, you're just going to be paying a premium for their workforce or whatever. So you're looking for one in the factory, in the countryside. And so then I just went, I think my first trip I visited maybe 5 factories. And then what I was looking for was actually the human connection when I got there, right? Because at the end of the day, you do have to deal with somebody at that factory, and you need someone you're going to trust. And so, yeah, I just went, I requested to meet with the manager, and also with a development staff, somebody that knew about the science behind drinks. So I met with these 2 people at about 5 factories, and yeah, just took notes and felt who I had a good connection with, who I thought would support our business. And then one of the challenges, which surprises a lot of people trying to do any type of manufacturing in Japan, is that a lot of factories will actually refuse to make something for you. And it's really not something that happens a lot in Western factories. Any business that comes their way, or even Chinese factories or anything like that, usually if business comes in, they're more than willing to just make it for you and accept.
So what is the reason Japanese factories tend to reject a lot of
that's a great question, actually. And actually what's at the heart of that rejection is basically internal bureaucracy and a fear of standing out. It's really a key point of business in Japan, which is that if you're approaching a factory, as I said, you meet the manager, you meet the development staff. That manager basically has to represent your company internally and say, all right, I think this startup or this company has enough potential that we should do it. And then all the other people in the factory or in the company are going to be looking at him or her and saying, this company's not doing that well. We were kind of wasting our time here, or, oh, it's going well. And there's some kind of fear they have that it won't go well. And so maybe we just shouldn't do this, right? We shouldn't even touch this because, it's a startup company. We may not do this. And so it's surprising, but and I actually get contacted by quite a few entrepreneurs looking to do manufacturing in Japan, and they're thinking, I'm just going to contact a factory and they're just going to take us. I don't even have to think about it, but it's just not really how it's going to work. Like they want to do a lot of due diligence. And even though you're the customer, right? You're the one paying them, but they're going to be doing a lot of due diligence just to make sure that it's not going to fail or embarrass them internally.
Because they want a long-term partner as well. They don't want just like, we're going to make one quick production run and then it's end of story.
Exactly.
And eventually you find your partner, right, that is able to produce your drink, and then you run straight to the Tokyo trademark office. Was this just a paperwork to file in and then, okay, this is my brand, this is my...
You have to have the trademark before you meet the factories. This is important. And I'm not saying anyone specific is going to steal your brand, but this is a real key point that before you meet any factories and start signing NDAs and have serious meetings, you should have your brand trademarks in hand. Because if you start showing your brand imagery and ideas, suddenly anyone can start using that. So the first step was getting the trademark. I had it registered. We didn't actually receive the final papers, but I had it registered and everything. And then started meeting the factories. And just to finish the factory point was that I met with about 5 factories. I would say 2 of them gave me a great impression. The managers were super friendly, but more was that they really liked the idea that we were doing, trying to bring anti-flush products to Japan. They said, wow, I know so many people with this problem. I also, now that you say it, I'm also shocked that no one's done this in Japan before. This is really cool. we want to help you. And then I said, okay, that's great. And that was kind of how the relationship started. Actually, the factory that I found through that process is still our main partner today. And I've been working with the same manager since then. And it's really been maybe the key relationship that has allowed my company to come this far on that point. So concerning the trademark, for anyone who wants to get a Japanese trademark, here's how you do it, right? In all Japan, there's only one office. It's in Tokyo. It's the Japanese name is the Tokyo-cho, or the Japan Patent Office, right? It's right downtown, next to the palace and next to the what do you call it? The National Diet, right? The Senate. It's a big, boring building.
Traditional Japanese
looks
administration.
like just a big concrete structure. Mostly what they do is patents. It's the big patent office, but the trademark office is on the second floor of that building, or maybe the application place is on the first floor. But they've got a consulting room on the second floor. And it's totally open. I mean, anyone who's been to the Japan Patent Office knows there's nobody there. It's a ghost town.
Nobody's filing patents.
Nobody's filing. There's usually one lawyer in a suit there, and then you walk in, and then you've got the whole place to yourself. But what's amazing is on the second floor, they've got this consulting room with like 5 offices and wonderful ladies sitting there just waiting to help somebody. So I just went there, I sat down, I said, look, we've got this idea, here's what we want to do. No lawyer, I did it all myself, and just talked to this nice lady for maybe an hour and a half, right? And she was more than happy to help. She printed out the application forms. She explained to me that, okay, you can do a trademark with the actual artwork, or you can do it with standard letters, and that will cover any type of artwork. I said, okay, great, let's do that then. It took about an hour and a half, and it's really only 2 or 3 pages. And then I think the filing fees initially, I shouldn't even say, I can't really remember, but the total filing fees were something like 20,000 yen.
It's like $150.
Yeah, so it's not expensive at all. It just takes a little bit of time. And I think you need a Japanese address. And at the time, I just used my, I think it's still registered to the company apartment in Osaka, if I'm not mistaken. We probably need to change that, but I believe it's still there. But it's just, you just register the trademark as standard characters. The Japanese word for that is hyojun moji, right? So that no artwork. You say which industry or which type of product it's going to be, and then you can get a 10-year trademark with no issue. It took maybe 3 months. You file, wait. They will send a letter to whichever address, and then you just do some kind of follow-up with that, and then it's yours.
So then you need to renew it though after 10 years.
That's right.
So you cannot get like a forever trademark.
Trademarks in Japan are either 5 or 10 years.
Okay.
But I believe you can renew it as long as you keep using the brand. So I think it is kind of forever per se. But yeah, the initial time is 10 years.
So you've got a trademark.
Yeah.
You've got a business partner to produce things, but you're still employed for your factory, and you have to make the decision, okay, I'm moving to Japan and I'm starting my company.
That was a tough decision, yeah. And even it was tough to tell my parents, right, that, all right, I've got an idea. I think it's a good one. And I'm going to quit my nice, stable job, which was, even paid me quite well. And I loved the travel. I loved the exposure I had. But yeah, I guess what turned the corner for me was just doing the research, right? I interviewed people who had alcohol flush and heard their struggles. I started looking at research papers about how much of the Japanese population has this issue, meeting with factories, and the more and more research I did, just the more I couldn't get the idea out of my head. And it was like, hold on, 42% of Japanese people have this DNA deficiency that's causing them to have trouble drinking, terrible side effects after drinking alcohol. Japanese culture loves drinking. They've got this infrastructure with so many little drinks and supplements that 100% of Japanese people have tried before. How could they not have an anti-flush brand or product in Japan? I just couldn't believe it. And so then finally, after about 2 years of preparation, the first year was really meeting the factories, getting the trademark, as I said. And then the second year was kind of product development, because it's just an idea. What do you put in the drink? What do you need? So I had to figure all that out, do research. And after 2 years, I finally thought, okay, this is my chance. I've been talking about some crazy business since I was 7 years old, nagging my poor mother with all my business ideas. It's finally time to make this happen. And I was 29 at the time, and I thought, if I don't start my business before I'm 30, it's never gonna happen. And I made a tough decision. Finally, I wrote my resignation letter all in Japanese. I was at the Shanghai factory, handed it to Mr. Ando. And the first time he read it, he said, all right, Beau, we'll think about this. And then he ripped it up, threw it away, and said, let's talk about this tomorrow. I said, all right. So he didn't really accept my resignation on the first go.
What do I do next, right?
Yeah, and then I waited a couple days, and then kind of waited until he was had a minute, right, a down minute, and then went into his office and kind of had a serious talk and said, "Listen, Mr. Ando, I'm honestly not that happy with my job here in Shanghai, and I've really had this dream to start my company, and I've really decided to go for this. I'm sorry. Thank you so much for this wonderful experience." And finally, he did accept it, and then it took about maybe 2 months or so to wrap everything up at that company. But they were never bitter about it or anything. They knew that, and I had a great experience there. I really helped them grow the overseas business, but I just felt like it was time to move on. And I think I had always been looking at let's say the older people in the company, the managers, and they really weren't so ambitious people, right? A lot of them were just salarymen that were kind of doing the motions and hadn't been that successful. And I thought, this is not what I want to end up. This is not the path that I'm looking for. So it wasn't that hard of a decision for me to leave and go for my own. It was more just the risk that was sitting in front of me. I mean, can I actually make this happen? But I thought, if I don't do it before I'm 30, it's never going to happen. Life is short. What's the worst that can happen? Okay, if I basically try it for 2 years, it's a big flop, right? And then I find a job, and that's basically the worst that could happen. So I just went for it.
So you flew back to Japan, and you're like, okay, now I have to start this company. Yeah,
and so just to say, I actually got an amazing opportunity, because right when I quit, like 2 weeks later, the competitor of that machinery company heard that I quit and basically invited me for an interview, saying, "Oh my gosh, if you quit, same industry, we'd love you to do like our overseas business in the US and South America." And I went for a quick interview. I told them, "Listen, I'm doing a startup in Tokyo. There's no way I can work full time, but if you're willing to give me like a part-time offer, I think we could work something out." Another very traditional Japanese company based in Fukuoka. I never thought they'd go for it, but The day after the interview, the old manager gave me a call and said, "Oh, Mr. Beau, we really like your style. we want you to be our guy." I was like, "Oh my gosh!"
So it's like the safety net for you to kind of
it just worked. It's unbelievable how well that worked out, because even though it was one of the most stressful times in my life, because I moved to Tokyo, but basically what that opportunity gave me was the working visa in Japan to get my company set up, which was just such a godsend. I had like a 3-year working visa that allowed, and a job that allowed me to set up my company, which was just so fundamental to making it happen. But during that first, let's say 9 months, I would be in, as soon as I got to Tokyo, I had to start the company. I had to incorporate the company, write the articles of incorporation, right? Find an office. I mean, it was just so hectic. Open a bank account, do everything like that. And then every 2 weeks, I would have to go to that job, visit the factory in Fukuoka, or fly to Brazil, or fly to the US for business meetings. And it was such a stressful 9 months. But at least I had some kind of backup support. I had some income coming in to help me get this company started. And I was able to found the company in November 2019, a company that basically targets group drinking parties, nomikais, public events 3 months before the lockdown started, which was a huge disaster. And things kind of went south at that point, because basically as soon as the lockdown started, it was like April 2020, May 2020, the job that I had got basically just fired me, kind of out of the blue. And it wasn't that much of a surprise. They said, "All right, you really can't travel abroad anymore. This overseas business, it's not really going to happen with all these lockdowns." Mm-hmm. They offered me a small severance pay and said, "Good luck with your startup in Tokyo." And then suddenly, right, the safety net was gone.
And you're on your own.
I was on my own in the share office we had in Tokyo. And so basically from somewhere May, June 2020, I just suddenly was on my own and basically had to make a big choice. Okay, do I believe in this idea enough to keep this going with my own savings, dedicate myself 8 hours a day to seriously get into the office and just grind myself to make this happen? Or, do I call it a day? And I wasn't up for quitting. And I just thought, man, no matter what, anti-flush products are going to happen in Japan. I had already met so many people who were just begging for a solution, saying, "Oh, I feel so uncomfortable after drinking. I'm turning red. I avoid drinking because I have these bad side effects. I would love to have these products." We had done a survey, and 85% of people said that they wanted to have these types of products, and I just couldn't let it go. And I said, I'm ready to double down and dedicate myself to it. And so then there I was, basically zero chance of getting investment, right? As a startup company, that's kind of what you need. No one was going to invest in a company like that when lockdowns just start. Basically zero chance of doing any sales because no one's going out drinking. There's no way a drugstore is going to take a chance on a new brand at a time like that. And so I basically just had to kind of do a 180 and dedicate myself to product development for about 1.5 years. And just say, all right, I'm going to work on the brand. I'm going to work on the product itself, do some testing, see what works, and just double down on that avenue.
I'm curious about the legal framework, because you're developing a beverage, right? So it's going to be consumed, and there are, since it's a functional beverage, there are also possibilities maybe for side effects depending on what's in there, allergic reactions. Mm-hmm. What is the framework in Japan for you to set up this kind of company and kind of get permission to sell this kind of product?
This is really a great question, and I think it's such an interesting topic and very surprising for myself and for most people of how little regulation there is for products like this.
I don't know if that's good or bad right now.
Well, yeah, it's good or bad, but basically it comes down to, do you believe in a capitalist society, right? Where the consumer is smart enough to make their decisions on these types of things. And yeah, I mean, I think there's two sides to that issue. I don't know, it's obviously a gray area, but when we're talking about products that are supplements, basically there is no approval. There's no regulation before the product's released. The way it works is a company needs to very clearly research the guidelines, see each ingredient of how much they can put in, how much they cannot put in, see which ones are allowed, which are all very available on the Japanese Ministry of Health's website. So you research all of these ingredients and you come up with your product that is non-medical or medical, and then you basically release it to the public. And then the way that it's regulated in any capitalist society is that once it's released, consumers can then take it back to the company, through the legal system if they think there's claims being made that are illegitimate, or people are getting sick from it, is basically how it works. And so when you're coming up with a pharmaceutical product or a supplement, basically the first decision you have to make is, should we make this product, should we design this product as a medical product or as a supplement? And I learned so much about this, but what's really unbelievable is that in many cases, a non-medical product can be stronger than a medical product. And you would never expect this, but if it's a medical product, the regulations are very strict. So for example, in our case, our products have a lot of amino acids and vitamins. And so if it's a medical product, there's very clear limitations on how much vitamin B you can put in it. And not for any particular reason, it's just vitamin B. It's something that's naturally in your body. Your body actually produces it naturally. But there are just very clear low limitations. On the other hand, if it's a non-medical product, there's basically no limitations on how much you can put on it, how much vitamins you can put in it and sell it normally. So it's a really interesting topic. And whenever you're approaching the design for this type of product, you really have to design it from the beginning to fit into one of those categories. So the way you would do this is you go on the Ministry of Health's website. They've got very long, boring lists of every supplement and medical ingredient, so you would get the list of the ingredients you want to use, and then you just cross-reference those with the list of medical ingredients, the list of quasi-drug ingredients, and then the list of non-medical ingredients, and you see which ones you can use in each category. And so when we started designing this, we had a long, maybe it was 20 potential ingredients, right, that could have these anti-flush effects. And just one by one, okay, this one is only for medical products. Okay, this one's allowed in supplements. Okay, this next one is only for quasi-drugs. And then we just started ticking them off the list and came up with a list. Okay, these 5 are okay for non-medical products. These 5 would work for a medical solution. And then, just basically started testing the non-medical ones on my friends. Yeah, is really what happened.
They were the guinea pigs.
Yeah, the poor guinea pigs. I mean, really, I feel there were some good and bad experiences, but I probably tested at seriously 200 times on my friends with varying degrees of of non-medical combinations of non-medical ingredients. Okay, this combination seems to be working well. This combination did nothing. That's a surprise.
So from the Japanese legal system, they will have guidelines as to all of these ingredients are authorized in Japan, and you can authorize each of those ingredients up to a certain kind of volume in any given product. But there's no regulation as to you cannot combine this with this or this with this, and there's no requirement for you to go through some sort of lab testing of potential side effects.
That's right, yeah.
Okay, so you make this, you prepare this at home in your office, you mix the ingredients, try to add some flavoring and test it on your friends.
Yeah.
Until you find something that works and that doesn't taste too bad.
Yeah, well, so the first step was finding something that works, and it tasted terrible. I mean, horrendous. Nobody could drink it. I was just saying myself, yeah, well, it's functional. And yeah, this is basically our products, or the products we've made so far, the non-medical drinks, are using amino acids, vitamins, and plant extracts at very high quantities, relatively speaking. And, amino acids are extremely nasty. They just taste terrible. And the key amino acid that we use has a sulfur molecule in the middle of it. So it just tastes horrendous. Then you've got vitamins, vitamin B, which is extremely bitter, vitamin C, which is extremely sour. And then you've got the plant extracts, which are also bitter. So it's just this terrible combination of everything. And, but I finally did find something that was a balance between functional and fitting into the Japanese regulations as a non-medical product. And so then the next major milestone was, okay, how do we make this drinkable, right? So I started adding sugars. I tested so many flavors. It was quite a journey. I mean, we tried citrus flavors, which turned out to just be too sour. We tried chocolates, which just turned into like a nasty mess of terrible tasting chocolate, right? We tried sweet fruits, which actually is finally what we went with. We tried apple. We tried natural juices. Right.
A lot of trial and error.
Artificial flavorings. We tried. At first, I was using only sugar to sweeten it, which actually is great at masking the flavors. But then you've got so much sugar in there that when you drink it, just the sugar itself almost makes you feel sick. And so we had to find a way to reduce that by using small amounts of artificial sweeteners. And so finally, I went back to these exhibitions that I love, and I went to the basically food exhibitions to find juices and natural flavors, and found a plum juice company from Wakayama that was doing natural plum juice for flavoring, and started using that to give it a try. And I thought, wow, actually, like the natural sugars in the plum is actually like doing a great job masking this. And that ended up being the first flavor that actually went to production. Was because we used the natural juice with a bit of plum flavoring on top, sugar, and some artificial sweeteners, all with this very scientific approach to masking the flavors. And I was able to research enough to maybe take that 90% of the way. But then I'm so fortunate because our factory was able to use their lab and their knowledge to take it that final 10% that made it actually consumable, actually like something we could sell on the market. So
that first year of COVID, you spent it doing this research, testing, trial and error, coming up with the product. You eventually get there and you have Akang, the beverage that you're now selling.
Yeah.
Do you remember the day you kind of put it up for sale and you had your first sale?
Oof. Well, I remember the manufacturing day. That's when I went to the factory in Gifu to do the manufacturing, it was quite emotional. But the first day we put it up for sale, we actually did a pre-sale campaign on Makuake in Japan, which we released it. And I remember even that was a bit of a tough road because Makuake, or any online seller in Japan, is very cautious about the language you can use to market these products, because they're non-medical supplements, which means you cannot make any direct claims about the health benefits of these products. And so, yeah, which is actually a big obstacle for my company, at least, finding clever ways to show what the product does without directly saying what it's supposed to do. And so I remember we first put it up for sale, and we had all of this prepared language about that wasn't exactly saying what it was going to do, but just in a clever way, saying that, like, oh, don't be red, or red's not for you, so some things like this. And we put it on Makuake, and they just basically rejected everything. So, like, because even though it's not illegal to say that stuff, their internal team said, oh, this is too risky, and you've got to rewrite everything. And so we had to come up with some very roundabout ways of saying, oh, this is an enjoyment drink or something like that. And anyway, it kind of taught us that we have to be even more clever about the ways of showing what it does without directly saying it.
It's interesting because those products, those functional beverages, are available readily at convenience stores, drug stores, absolutely everywhere.
Yeah.
And when you see them, they do have claims to, oh, this is, you drink this before drinking, it's gonna put a layer around your liver and you're not gonna get any side effects from alcohol. And you drink this and you're gonna get rid of a cold. Or
this is a really interesting point, because it's kind of a misconception, and I see that they've caught you. Like, if we were to go to the Konbini right now and look at those drinks, you would see there are no claims. It's all done by very clever imagery and word of mouth marketing. And they may, for example, the very popular hangover cure, Hepatize, the way they do it is by putting a picture of a liver on their products. And so most people associate it with, oh, it's gonna help my liver. But actually, they're very careful to make no claims, to say nothing about hangovers or drinking or anything like that. But just by the liver imagery, they convey the message quite clearly. And you'll see it. Take a look next time you're in the community.
I will. Now you got me curious.
You'll be shocked that there's basically no claims made, and it's all done through clever word of mouth marketing. Yeah.
That's very fascinating, because when I first came to Japan, I grew up in France, and we don't really have that many of those beverages. I'm sure we have some, and I do remember growing up with there was this milk-based beverage, Actimel, I think it was called, similar to Yakult in Japan, helping probiotics. Yeah. And then many years later, there was a kind of report saying it's basically just milk with sugar, and it's not doing what it says it does. But when I came to Japan and I see all those beverages, I've always wondered, do they even work? Like, why do people? I saw sometimes I see people buying hundreds of flasks, and they're not always cheap, right? They cost a certain amount of money, and so they're actually not allowed to make claims now. You say, but people are
depends on the product, because some of those drinks are actually medical products, right? But and it's such a fascinating topic, because there's actually so many details that go behind that marketing. But in the convenience store, most of them are actually non-medical supplements. But if you go to the drugstore, where it's a bit bigger refrigerator, I would say almost half of them are actually medical products. And they do have claims, but it's very bizarre. It's basically like a couple of the ingredients have maybe 20 years ago got approved for some claim, like, reducing the stress in your body or something like that, and they just write that in tiny little letters in the fine print. But then the actual marketing is just totally unassociated with those claims. I mean, it's really bizarre how each company comes up with their own strategy for that. And another anecdote on this point would be, Reiwa Pharmaceuticals, our first product was the drink, but we've been aggressively developing a tablet product. That would be it. So an anti-flush tablet. And there's a couple products already in the market that, let's say, they have similar ingredients to what we're trying to make. And those ingredients have maybe 20 years ago, they were approved for some type of medical use. And it's very weird. It's okay, this will reduce your feeling of appetite after drinking alcohol, or this will make you feel better the next day, or if you're pregnant, this will reduce your fatigue. Just a very like laundry list of just very broad claims. And then on the actual packaging, the products say like skin whitening product, which is totally not in the claims at all. And so I'm asking the factory managers, I'm like, why are you guys calling this a skin whitening product? They say, oh, well, that's what everyone else says, so we just say it too. And it's actually not even in the claims. And so, this facade of the pharmaceutical industry is just so bizarre, and like the deeper and deeper you dig into the pharmaceutical industry, like the more you peel back like this layer that's covering it, and it's really interesting, like how the marketing and the actual research and claims in most cases don't even align. It's very weird.
So you're kind of part of this industry, and you've created this beverage that you've tested and has seen positive results.
Exactly.
But then you're facing also maybe dubious customers that are thinking, is this really going to work? If I drink this, am I not going to flush? How what was the kind of the response from customers, and how did you kind of end up communicating your products?
Sure. Well, that's an ongoing mission. So the way we did it was basically by testing it in our office on video. And anyone can go to our Instagram page. I think we've done about 10 long form tests so far, where we basically invited people to the office who have this DNA deficiency, asked them to drink maybe two portions of alcohol, waited till their face turned red. We prepared a couple of basically skin palettes with its 27 differentiations between white and red, and then just measured their face color as they drank alcohol, saw it go up to the top, and then allow them to take our drink, wait about 30-40 minutes, and then start seeing the facial color slowly turn back to white. And so we just recorded these videos. So we did the facial color. We also measured their heart rate. And actually the people with this alcohol flush reaction, it's not only the facial color, they get quite a few other negative side effects, such as their heart rate usually doubles with no activity, just from drinking alcohol. And so we would measure their heart rate as well and see, wow, it's actually, after they drink the Akan, their heart rate is actually decreasing as well. And so we just saw this, took these videos, took the data, released it on our Instagram, and then a lot of people did find those videos to be compelling evidence to give it a try. But it's an ongoing struggle to find the best ways to
so now you have to find your clever way to kind of communicate and go around the regulations towards kind of claims of products. Sure. But one of the advantages you have, you were mentioning to me, and which is the reason you started Reiwa Pharmaceuticals, is there's no real competition, right? At the moment, nobody else is producing this.
That's right, yeah. And I think a lot of that is because it's such a difficult product to make. As I described how hard it was to even make it drinkable, or to make it, to get those ingredients together. And the products we released so far have 5 active ingredients, and there's even more we could put in potentially. And so it's not an easy product to make, and I think that has dissuaded a lot of companies from even attempting it, or especially making it as a drink. And I think I'm not 100% sure about this, but I believe we're the only functional beverage in Japan with natural juice in it. Like they're all using artificial flavoring, whereas we actually put natural juice to make it drinkable, which was, I guess you could call that an innovation. But I was just so shocked that there was no anti-flush product in Japan, whereas in the US, there's basically 3 popular products that Asian American people are using on a regular basis, even though those 3 products cannot be sold in Japan because they don't fit in the medical regulations. So it's totally a new product category we're introducing in Japan. And I've got pretty big ambitions for it. I mean, and I think it's a simple goal, right? There's 42% of people are having these terrible side effects. They should be able to have an affordable, convenient solution, just like any type of hangover product for normal drinkers. 5 years from now, we see some type of anti-flush product, whether it's the one we've made already or a different form or slightly different branding. We see this in every convenience store, every drugstore in Japan, just so that any person on their way to the party, they know they're going to be drinking. They don't want to have these bad side effects, the headaches, whatever, the drowsiness. They just pick up one bottle for 400 or 500 yen, drink it, and go on their way. I mean, it's a simple message, right?
I'll
it's
be
really
looking
easy.
out for when I see Akan in the next in the community.
The tears will just come out of my eyes as soon as I see that. So.
That's a plan now for Reiwa Pharmaceuticals. Develop this drink further and kind of build it up until the point it's like a national beverage available everywhere and not necessarily mostly through online sales.
Absolutely. Yeah. The key to this product is the drugstores and the convenience stores. They've got this refrigerator for these types of products already ready, and our consumers all say it. That's where they're looking. They want to go there and buy one bottle on the way to the party. And it's okay. With some people do want to buy online, a few people, but I think the real key is getting in the drugstores and the convenience stores. And that's kind of where we're at right now. We've just produced our second product, and we've been meeting with the wholesalers, the retailers, with the goal of launching in a few drugstores in Tokyo within this year. So
are there any specific, because a lot of the convenience stores are franchised, right? How can you contact one convenience store owner? Do you need to contact Family Mart or 7-Eleven to get approval to be nationwide? What's the process to get into those?
Yeah, so for now, we're not really targeting convenience stores. And so anyone will tell you, like, convenience stores are, depending on the chain, are on either a monthly or 3-month schedule, meaning that any new product basically has 1 month or 3 months to prove itself. And at our current stage, that would be a disaster. we wouldn't be able to even supply enough to make a serious convenience store push. But the way you would do it, and the way we'll do it in 2 years, is basically going through Family Mart or 7-Eleven headquarters. You get in touch with the new product developers and buyers, usually through an introduction. We've actually already met with a couple of them, and the first product just wasn't quite ready enough to gain some traction in that space. But I've got pretty high hopes for our upcoming products, but really the way you would want to grow a product like this is not by rushing into the convenience store. This is just asking for failure. The real way is starting with very targeted sales at, our product is for drinking parties and group events and stuff. You want to be in the drugstores, in the hot spots, such as, in Namba, in Shinsaibashi. If you got maybe 10 drugstores to have your product available there, then you use your social media to put those locations out to your customers. Then you'll start seeing the sales generating on a much more specific location basis. And then you can slowly build that into a bigger and bigger rollout with those drugstore partners that you develop. And so you can either do that directly with the drugstores, which is not that easy actually, or you can do it through distributors, right? Wholesalers, which is a big industry in Japan. So basically, we meet with these wholesale food and beverage and medical wholesalers on a fairly regular basis to introduce the products, and then they help us with their network of drugstores that they're already working with.
Seems like you have your work cut out for you for the next few months.
Oh man, we've got a lot going on.
You started Reiwa Pharmaceutical at the end of 2019.
Yeah.
After 2 years of pre-planning and then the product development, and now you launched. Looking back at all your experience and all the challenges you went through, is there something you'd be doing different, where you were like, if I knew what I know now, I would have just gone a different path to say?
Yeah, I would say one of the mistakes that I made was trying to do too much myself, I would say. Because a lot of startups are not done by a solo founder, even though I just never really met that person that could be a great co-founder with me, but I would have loved to have at least one or even two co-founders that were bringing something to the table and helping motivate each other on the path. And I think that would have added a lot to the company. I did do it. It's been a one-man show for the first 3.5 years of the company, and which has allowed me to make a lot of decisions quickly. But it would have been great to have a partner or two along the way, is what I'd say.
And as a startup founder here in Japan, we've had quite a few other founders here. Some have very different experiences in terms of the advantages and challenges of starting a company in Japan. In your specific industry, so pharmaceutical company, is there something that you were looking for that you couldn't find in terms of support, or maybe a resource available for founders, for startups to kind of establish yourself?
Resources available for founders.
So we, for example, just talked to Tyson, who was saying that cities are establishing these kind of support systems and trying to facilitate the establishment of new, younger companies as such.
Sure. I'll say that the Tokyo One-Stop Business Establishment Center, the TOSBEC, was a huge resource for me. I was able to get free consultations with lawyers about the incorporation, as I said, about the trademarks, about all that. That was never a problem. I had no problem incorporating the company. I guess the banking was a big struggle, now that I think about it. There was very little guidance on which banks would be startup friendly. How do you even approach a bank to get a corporate account? That was I remember in 2020 spending like 3 months just going bank to bank to bank, application, rejection, okay, second follow up, second application. I mean, it was just wild how long it took me to get decent corporate bank accounts. But then I took all that knowledge and I turned it into a LinkedIn article called The Guide to Corporate Banking in Japan, which has become super popular among entrepreneurs in Japan. So I kind of took all that knowledge that I gained and just tried to share it with this community. So
when the resource is not there, just make it yourself.
Yeah, I made it. I did. Yeah, because I got all this knowledge in my head and it was just nagging at me. I've got all this. Somebody else needs this information, and I wrote it myself. But it's resources that weren't available.
So it seems like there are some available, but it's still a big effort of any startup founder to look for some help and support, and ideally have maybe a partner that can help to go through the...
What's coming to my mind now is the language barrier. I mean, the truth is, if I didn't speak Japanese at a fairly fluent level, none of this would have happened, right? The factories, the banks, the loans, the investment. Almost all of it has been done in Japanese only, and I think most of those partners wouldn't even take a non-Japanese speaking startup company seriously. So I would caution anyone who's considering a company in Japan. I think this society does still have a big language barrier, and if you're not, I think a translator is never going to cut it. Yeah, you're never going to be able to build those relationships that make a successful startup without it. So yeah, I would say that's what's coming to mind right now.
So if someone is listening to this and is thinking, I also want to start a company, maybe also going into the industrial production type of industry, the advice would be speak the language.
Speak the language and understand the culture. When there's going to be a time where you're sitting in that factory, that's your partner, and you've got to have a serious talk with the factory manager, the development manager. You got to have a negotiation. There's going to be a big Japanese contract. I think ours is 17 pages that you have to do all in Japanese. And that's all really serious stuff. And I would say if you are really serious about building a successful company in Japan, invest some time in the language and culture before you just dive into that journey, is what I'd say.
Well, we covered a lot of topics, and you had a fascinating story from your experience at the traditional company to starting a pharmaceutical company in Japan.
Yeah.
Is there something that we haven't covered that you would have liked to share or talk about, whether it's an anecdote or maybe an aspect of your business that you want to share? Yeah,
there is, and I brought it today.
Okay.
So this is the debut on the Unpacking Japan podcast. This is our Reiwa Pharmaceuticals' second product. It's called Akamomo Aji, which is the red peach flavor. And so actually we manufactured this yesterday. So I was at the factory.
So this is fresh out of the factory.
This was actually the first box out. It's not even out yet. They're still preparing all the shipments at the factory. The pre-sale will be starting in about next week or so, and then full sales are going to start at the beginning of May. But this was the very first one, and I just wanted to share this because we were talking about our first product, Akan, and it wasn't a perfect product. And so what I'd say to any aspiring entrepreneur is, look, at some point when you're releasing a product, it's never going to be perfect. That our first product wasn't perfect. There was still some bad taste left over when we made it big scale. When you would open the bottle, the yeast extract that we used kind of had an off-putting scent. Even though it did work well, there were still some bad points to it. A lot of people saw the label, they thought, oh, that's not perfect. Oh, actually, I don't quite understand what this is saying. The point is, take every chance as a learning opportunity. Just because we didn't know what we were doing the first time, right? We came up with a product. We tried our best to make a label for a totally new product category. Take every chance as a learning opportunity. And we listened to the customers. We heard, okay, they don't like this part of the flavor. They want something more fruity, right? The plum flavor didn't turn out to work that well in the large scale production. So we tried some new ones for a peach. And people said they didn't connect with the logo itself that much, which was basically what the old label was. So we came up with this new character. We tried to answer people's questions on the box, and take every chance for a learning opportunity and keep iterating. And I think the reason that Reiwa Pharmaceuticals has made it almost 5 years is really just persistence, right? For the fundraising side, I've had literally 100 rejections, right? From private investors, venture capital companies, so many no's, it's just washing over me now. We've had factories reject us. We've had wholesalers and retailers say, oh, we don't think this is good enough. Sorry, we're not going to work with you. The list just goes on and on. You really have to believe in what you're doing and make it like your life's passion. to change the world. And yeah, that's really what we're trying to do is bring this great product to help people who have alcohol flush, but you really have to dedicate yourself and make it your passion, and just don't take no for an answer. Yeah,
just keep going.
Yeah, just keep going. I mean, I really think persistence is the key to a startup. You just have to keep going, and there's going to be tough times, and you're going to get a lot of rejections. So get ready for that. Whenever you're building something new, but take every rejection as a learning opportunity. Why did they say no? Why did they? Why didn't they think this was good enough? And use that to make it better the next time, and just keep going. And I think the snowball effect is real with startup companies. You start small, and you keep building and building and building, one drink at a time, one product at a time, and yeah, just don't take no for an answer.
And then this is what we get.
Yeah.
So for people interested,
really
this will be available by the time this episode is released. So
awesome.
We will put the link in the description, and people can go check it out if they're interested to try it, if they're interested to see and experience it.
I'm really proud with what our company came up with. I mean, so we totally redesigned the flavor with natural peach juice and a slightly different sweetening mix. It's really nice. It works really well. So if you have friends that maybe avoid, our research showed that people with the alcohol flush were joining 60% less drinking parties than normal people, because they are worried about these
side effects.
They get headaches, they get tired. We're just trying to give them an easy way to live in the moment, to enjoy these parties. So if you do know people that have this alcohol flush reaction, show them the product. Let them have a try. We do online sales in 2-bottle, 5-bottle, 10-pack, and a 50-pack. And it's not meant to be. Our products are not meant to be luxurious. The prices are intentionally low because this is a product for everybody, and we're trying to sell it. So yeah, it's going to be selling online, basically starting next week. And then the goal is to get this into drugstores before the end of the year.
So we'll keep our eyes out for that.
Yeah.
Beau, thank you for coming, for sharing your insightful story.
This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was great having you here, and it was very interesting to hear about setting up pharmaceutical companies, the legal system being different, and most importantly, all your side stories.
Sure.
All the experience you've been through.
Yeah, and I would say I'm someone who's really easy to reach out to. I'm always welcoming contacts. The easiest way to get in touch with me is on LinkedIn.
The link will be also down below, so if people are interested to reach out, have more questions, we will send them over your way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Beau. Thank you everyone for listening and for watching. This was Unpacking Japan, and we'll be back next week. Bye.